Hello and welcome back to the Welsh Premiership podcast and our review preview show for the Indigo Group Welsh Premiership Cup. Today we'll be looking back on the fourth round of games and previewing the fifth round coming up this weekend. So we'll get straight into last week's games then. And a few of us went to see the Friday Night Lights clash between Cardiff and Ponty. Obviously a big derby down at the Arms Park. So Adam, what did you make of that game?
Yeah, fair play. A really good competitive game between two local rivals. Obviously, Cardiff was strengthened with quite a few of the boys dropping down from the Cardiff Rugby first team, but Ponty still give a good account of themselves, kept it competitive, and there'll definitely be positives for them to take from that. But no, Cardiff will be really happy with the win.
Yeah, and Tobias, who were your standout players from that game?
I think you got to credit the whole Cardiff backline, to be honest. I thought as a unit, they were outstanding. Dan Fish controlled the game from 10, deservedly won man the match. Jacob Beetham, a fullback, I thought was excellent. Every time he got on the ball, he looked like he was going to create something. And then the two wingers, Summerhill and Millard, finished off some good moves. So, fair play to Cardiff, strong performance, but got to give credit to Ponty, like I had said. They kept this competitive as they could against a strong side.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Obviously, there were some forwards that stood out for Ponty, like Ben Stevens, Chris Dickamidis, Christian Parker as well. They're real workhorses and did a job around the park for Ponty, but they just couldn't really grab a hold of that game, could they? I know we spoke about Ben Bernal on the pod last week. Obviously, he was in our team of the week. And he showed glimpses of what he could do, but I think Cardiff just controlled him really well and got on top of him. So he didn't have as much space as he did in previous weeks to sort of pull the strings for Ponty. There's a few good glimpses, like when he put Stuckey through for his try. But I think overall Cardiff were just the better team on the night. After the game, we caught up with Cardiff outside half, man of the match Dan Fish, and Pontypridd second row Chris Dickamidis.
And unlucky on the result, but what were your overall thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I thought the boys we tried hard, we stuck at it for the full 80 minutes. First 20 minutes was a hectic pace. In the end, just too many errors on our behalf. And to be fair to Cardiff, they took their chances when they came.
Yeah, it was a good Cardiff team they played, wasn't it? Obviously, you would have learned a lot from playing against they had a number of pros in there. What would you have learned from playing against them?
Yeah, obviously we said a lot of pros come down from the Blues and, players with experience like Fishy and boys like that. And we got, youngsters, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds. So, it's great for us. They got to come to Sardis as well later on the season. So they'll probably be loaded up again. But, like I said, it's great for us boys. The underdogs here, we had nothing to lose. We come out and, we flew into them. And at the end of the day, it was just a tough defeat, but that's where it goes.
Yeah, you mentioned they got to come to Sardis, but what about the Ponty fans down here today?
They're unbelievable, aren't they? Wherever we go, the Cardiff, Newport, RGC, they come in their bus loads. They'll probably outnumber the Cardiff supporters 5-1 tonight, but they always do, from thick and thin, they stay with us. Like I said, we've got a young team now, just, coming through. Everyone says, look, we're in that transition period, but you are, we've lost Locks, the old guards, only me and Shelley left of the old guards. So, but, we keep plugging away and, we keep playing, we keep turning up week in, week out and keeping our best.
We're happy with the result. Obviously, a bonus point win against Ponty. It was a great result for us. Like I said to the boys, it don't matter what team Ponty put out, what team Cardiff put out, it's always going to be a physical derby game. And, to be fair to Ponty, they dug at it. They made us work hard for the result, and obviously we're happy to come away with a win at the end.
And obviously you won man of the match today, but how much are you enjoying being playing for the Blue and Black?
I'm a Cardiff boy, so every time I get to put a jersey on, it was an honour for me. Growing up around the city, and like I said, my role as a player coach. If they think I can still do a job as a player, I think I'll keep doing that. And obviously when the time's right, then I'll obviously step behind the scenes and then do as much as I can off the field to help Cardiff achieve what we want to achieve. I love the place, and I'll just keep doing as much as I can.
Yeah, and you mentioned your role as a player coach then. There's plenty of good youngsters out there today, weren't there? Like young Beetham at fullback. How much do you enjoy playing with them and getting to see them progress?
It's great to me. Obviously, I coach a couple of these boys through the colleges before I come to obviously working with Cardiff Rugby Academy, and just see these boys thriving on a stage like this. Is obviously good for me, good for them. But like we said, it's just slow and steady for them boys. We don't want to get above ourselves. It's a little steps to get where they want to get. Because the eventually end goal is to be playing professional rugby week in, week out for them boys.
Moving on then to the second game in the Eastern Conference, and Newport hosted Merthyr at their new home, Newport Stadium. What did you make of that game?
Yeah, fair play to Newport. Obviously, they were losing at half time, came back and got a really good result. I think it's fair to say Merthyr haven't been reaching the usual standards this season. Obviously, um, they're still technically reigning champions, aren't they? Because Cardiff didn't actually get round to winning the league last time out. So they're still reigning champions, but they won from 4. Disappointing result for them, but a huge result for Newport moving into their new ground, and a great result to start off a new era.
Yeah, I think Merthyr will be disappointed because obviously they were winning at half time against Ebervale, winning at half time against Newport. So I think they'll just be disappointed that they can't close out those games. And they've had some really poor second half performances, especially when you're 13-0 up. You should obviously be going on to win that game, but take nothing away from Newport. I know they had a few standouts in the pack. I know Lennon Greggins was their Serena game, man of the match. And then in the back line then as well, Will Reed, another good game. Ollie Andrew, another try for him. So Newport did look really strong in that game. Moving on then to the last game in the Eastern Conference, and Ebervale made the long trip up to Parc Iris to face RGC. This was the evening kickoff. A big crowd up there as well. I think 1,100, which is obviously massive for them, massive for the Premiership. And even though RGC won, I'm told that Ebu were really strong, and Ebu actually had all the territory in the possession, especially in the second half. But they just couldn't score. RGC's back row in particular on their own line, a few turnovers, and then young Evan Lloyd, the outside half that's obviously there from the Dragons, just kicked them off the park, sent them back to the halfway line, and then Ebervale just had to rebuild again. I think Greg Wood's really disappointed that his side couldn't get the win because RGC's defence on their own line was just too strong. And I know their skipper, Joe Franchi's torn his bicep, was announced in the week. So he'll be out for quite a long time, and he'll be a massive miss for them. Obviously, with him taking over the captaincy this season from Ashley Sweet. So I think Connor Chapman starting at hooker. He's a young Dragons Academy boy as well. Moving over to the Western Conference of the Welsh Premiership Cup then, and Aberavon continued their unbeaten streak with a 26-3 away win at Carmarthen Quins. Boys, what are your thoughts on that game? Do we expect that one to be a little bit tighter?
You would expect it to be a little bit closer, but fair play to Aberavon. That's one hell of a result. Going down there and getting a win like by that margin, I don't think any of us saw it coming really. We really thought it'd be a competitive game. But I think Aberavon, it's fair to say they are the team to beat in the Western Conference. And I don't think anyone will be surprised if and when they finish top.
Yeah, obviously it's a strong result for Aberavon, but what I'd like to say is they made a number of changes this weekend, and they still go away to Quins, who are top side, and come away with a win like that shows real strength and depth they got this season. And for me now, I say they've got to be favourites for the Prem Cup. The way they played this year, I've seen them a couple of times. The depth they have now is unreal for this level of rugby.
Yeah. So moving on then to the next game, and I think we probably all agree that this was the shock of the round, really. Even though we've mentioned how Bridgend have been building, for them to go away to Llandovery and come away with a 25-19 win. Tobias, I know you've been involved with Bridgend this season. So what were your thoughts on that game?
Well, I told you a result like this will be coming soon, and fair play, they pulled it out of the bag. Early days of the season, but no, excellent second half performance especially. I know they were 19-5 down half time, so 20 unanswered points in the second half to come away with a win. I thought the two props that come on half time, Garen Phillips, Ben Warren, outstanding, changed the game for Bridgend. I thought the combo of Matthew Jones at 10 and Jamie Murphy at 12 really worked. And fair play, they finished off some good tries, but it's one hell of a result, and they're building strongly now.
Yeah, you mentioned the two props, obviously Ospreys Academy players. You had the likes of Tom Florence on the wing, Morgan Strong in the back row. Adam, I'm just going to ask you as an Ospreys fan, like how much you enjoying seeing those young Ospreys developing in the Premiership?
Yeah, it's great. Like obviously Garen Phillips had a few first team games last season. And, he was really impressive at regional level. So at Premiership level, you'd really expect him to be a standout player. Ben Warren, I haven't really seen too much of him. He signed from Cardiff in the summer. But no, it's good to see them developing in the Premiership, and hopefully it won't be long before they're wearing the Ospreys jersey again.
Moving on to the last game in the Western Conference then last weekend, and a game that we thought was going to be really tight. Two teams that have struggled this season, Swansea and Llanelli. Adam, what was the result there, and what did you make of the game?
Yeah, obviously a 53-15 win for Swansea. I wasn't too surprised that Swansea got their first win of the season. They were probably looking at that game as the one to win. But I think the margin of victory definitely would have surprised a few people. No, fair play to Swansea, though. They had a really strong team out, like Bridgend, a few Ospreys youngsters dropping down, and they really made a difference. I think you look at Llanelli, you look at their team this week, they got a few Scarlets boys playing for them, which I think is probably much needed because they are a really young squad at the end of the day. But it was a good result for Swansea, but you got to sort of worry for Llanelli if arguably the two weakest teams in the league, and Swansea managed to beat them by that margin of victory.
So after last weekend's results then, Cardiff unsurprisingly sit top still of the Eastern Conference, followed by Newport and Ebbw, Ponty, Merthyr and RGC then at the bottom, having only picked up their first win of the season on Saturday. Western Conference then is a lot more open. You've got Aberavon still sitting top, the only unbeaten side left in either of the conferences. Llandovery and Quins narrowly behind them, followed by Bridgend, then Swansea, and then Llanelli, who are the only team left in either conference yet to pick up a win. Moving on to next weekend then, and I'll start with the Eastern Conference again. There's a big Gwent derby, obviously the only two Gwent teams in the Premiership. Ebbw and Newport facing off against each other. What do you make of this game?
Yeah, it'll be a really good one, I think. Both teams have had sort of decent starts to the season, bit inconsistent at times though, probably. I think if you look at that, I think you'd probably have to tip Newport, but there won't be much in it at all. I'd say Newport by one score.
Yeah, I know Ebbw started the season strongly, but I think the last few weeks they've been disappointed with the way they're playing. Well, fair play Newport this year. There's some big results, and I fancy Newport to come away with the win. Yeah,
obviously you mentioned Ebbw, two really good wins back-to-back, Ponty and Merthyr to start the season, and then big defeat against Cardiff in the third game at Eugene Cross. They did really step up physically. I know that's something Greg talked about, was how they matched RGC physically. The likes of like Dan Hill, Dom Franchi, Lewis Young, players like that. They did really step up their game for the trip to RGC, but I think they will be concerned that they didn't win that game in North Wales, because they did have so much of the ball, and they weren't clueless, but RGC just seemed to have an answer for everything. And obviously that's an RGC team that were picking up their first win of the season. So yeah, it will be a massive game. Newport definitely favourites, I think, but we wouldn't be surprised to see Ebbw turn them over. The second game then, and Merthyr host Cardiff. I know Cardiff have made a few big changes. Dan Fish, man of the match last week, is dropped to the bench with Jack Maynard, who was on our podcast last week, coming in. Tobias, what are your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I think you've got to back Cardiff to come away with a win. I don't know what's going on in Merthyr the last couple of weeks. I know, strong first half performances and then falling away in the second half, but they're going to have to play for the whole 80 minutes if they want to get a result this weekend. Like Cardiff side, no matter how many changes they made again, is a really strong side. So I'd fancy Cardiff to come away there, but I'm expecting a stronger performance from Merthyr this week as well.
Yeah, Merthyr will have something to prove, and against Cardiff as well, I think they'll be up for it. Look at Cardiff's team though, I think they'll have too much for them. Like, there's still a few first team players dropping down. When you've got someone like Dan Fish on the bench, just shows the depth they've got, really, doesn't it? So I think it'd be competitive, but I think last 20, 30 minutes, Cardiff will probably pull away, because you've got to consider when you've got professional players dropping down, I don't think it's unfair to say that they're probably fitter than the semi-pro players. So I think fitness will play a part in that game.
Yeah, and moving on then to the last game in the Eastern Conference, and Ponty will be hosting RGC at Sardis Road. What do you make of that one?
Again, Good win for RGC last week. Good for them to get their first win. But, Ponty away, really tough game. And, I think Ponty will win that one.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how RGC play now. I know they had 2 home games in a row and really stepped up performance-wise. They'll be back on the road travelling. It'll be interesting to see. I'd still say Ponty probably just the stronger side on paper, but, RGC are improving like what we've said most weeks. So I think they'll give them a good game.
Yeah, and I know we mentioned weekly sort of Kerry Jones is how he's sort of taking a hold of the squad. And you see evidence of that, like changing weekly. You had the 2 Dragons Academy boys playing for them on last Saturday against Ebervale. You had Evan Lloyd at 10, who I'm told had a really good game. Obviously, didn't have much of the ball, but every time they won a turnover, he was kicking them 50 meters down the pitch. I think he was really composed and sort of did the job that he needed to do for RGC to get the win. Didn't pull out anything flashy or necessarily do anything too out there, but he just did his job and just kept putting Ebervale back down the field. And then the other one, Brodie Coughlin, hooker, was his first start. He scored, so you can definitely see the sort of the impact that Kerry Jones is having up there. And we know they got a good mix of some sort of solid back row players, second row players, and then some exciting backs as well. Moving on then to the Western Conference and Aberavon hosting Llandovery. What are your thoughts on that one?
I don't think anyone can stop Aberavon. They're on such a good run of form, got such a good squad. It'll be a tough test for them in Llandovery, obviously a really good team. They'll be looking to prove a point after losing at home last week against Bridgend. But I can't see anything but an Aberavon win. It'd be close though.
Yeah, I think Llandovery, like I said, will have a point to prove after, disappointing defeat from last week. But yeah, Aberavon, they look so good. I don't think anyone will be able to beat them right now.
Yes, obviously mental. You mentioned their strength and depth when we were talking about their last game. If you look at the players that aren't in the starting lineup this weekend, obviously you got the injured players like Joe Tomlin-Reeves, Jay Baker, players like that. There's obviously no Gage, no Steph Andrews, no Alan Thomas. And still, they look so strong on paper. It's sort of something that you don't really see in the Premiership too often, do you?
No, but you got to give them credit because they've been building this squad over a good couple of years now. I know just before COVID, they were up there with Cardiff at the top of the league. But fair play to Jason Hire, he's brought some good coaches in as well there. And they are building something nice and, they're looking very, very strong.
And then moving on to the second game, and Bridgend Ravens will be hosting Swansea. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, really. I think Bridgend are probably slight favourites just because they're coming off such a good win last week. But you look at Swansea, massive win. It would be so good for their confidence to get that first win, and they did it in some style as well. Both teams will have Ospreys youngsters dropping down, so playing for places really. If you're playing against someone in your position, you've going for one spot in that Osprey squad. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I think Bridgend are slight favourites though. I think if Bridgend win, it'll be one score game.
Yeah, I know Swansea coming off the back of a big win last week, and credit to them for excellent display. But I still fancy Bridgend to come away with a good victory. They showed what they can do last week with Llandovery, and they want to make sure that wasn't just a one-off this week. A couple of changes enforced maybe. It's nice to see Derry Cross back, I think, on the wing as well for Bridgend. He was excellent from just before COVID. I know he's been travelling with the Ospreys last few weeks, but another game, so be nice to see him back on the pitch and hopefully scoring a couple of tries. Yeah,
I think regardless of the result tomorrow, I think that's got all the hallmarks of going to be a fantastic game. You've got all these regional youngsters that, as I'd mentioned, are playing for places in the academy, and they'll all want to express themselves. And then you've obviously got some of the boys that have been around the block, the likes of Jamie Murphy, players like that, who can only benefit these youngsters playing alongside them. So I think that's going to be a fantastic game, and as you mentioned, could go either way. Both sides coming off massive wins last weekend. Finally, then Llanelli will be hosting Carmarthen Quins. What do you think of that one?
Yeah, again, I think it'll be a really good game. Local derby, Scarlets derby. I think both teams have got Scarlets boys dropping down. You look at Llanelli, they've got Tyler Morgan and Steph Hughes in the centre, full of regional experience. Well, Tyler Morgan's a Welsh international, so that he'll bring so much to them. He'll be looking to prove a point, trying to get back into the Scarlets team. I think it'll be close, but I think you still got to, you probably say Quins are favourites purely because they've had a better start to the season. Llanelli still haven't got that win. But I think Llanelli will be really looking at this game at home, thinking, local derby, this would be a perfect opportunity to get that first win.
Yeah, I think Llanelli needed a few boys to drop down. They were a very young squad. There wasn't much experience in there. I know the two centres, like As mentioned, coming in. I know Jacob Lewis is back on the bench from as well after an injury, so it's nice to see them get a few more boys in, and hopefully they'll be competitive against the Quins. But yeah, I'm with that there. I think you still got to fancy the Quins to come away with a win.
That's a wrap for this episode then. Join us next Wednesday when we'll have another guest podcast. And next Friday when we'll have another weekly review preview show where we'll be discussing the games and this upcoming weekend, and obviously previewing the games the weekend after. Remember to keep an eye on our social media at Welsh Prem Pod for updates of the games and match reports as well. Thank you and goodbye.